Welcome to If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo. Don, how you doing?
Great, Josh. Yourself?
I'm doing great. We're back with part two. Could you please, I'm sure the entire nation was on edge for your cliffhanger from part one and the receiver in Super Bowl 28.
It is. That's how I roll. I wanted to just, I was right. I knew it. I just didn't
Sure.
want to, I wanted to have everyone back and at the edge of their seat. So yeah, I was mentioning in Super Bowl 28, Brad Lamb was a friend of mine, and all the families went to the Super Bowl in Atlanta, and Brad's wife Angela's father was there, and we were at the hotel, and the cars, it was like you pull up in front of the hotel and people get picked up there, and Chris Walsh was the other receiver on the team, and he went running up to their car thinking that Angela's father was limo driver or just a driver. I think he went so far as to like jump in the back seat. Hey, I need to go to Buckhead, or I need to go to somewhere. And he was like, sorry, but yeah, I'm gonna be driving my family somewhere.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
Teammates, but
they tell it much better than that.
Sure.
But it was just, yeah.
Well, there you go. So we're about halfway through our list of the 25 most interesting Bills wide receivers, from Andre Reed to Stephon Diggs. We ended last time with Peerless Price.
Yeah,
we're gonna get into the drought era,
Mm-hmm.
the time when Don was more involved decision making and in the room behind the scenes with some of these guys. Some interesting characters, some interesting entrances and exits from the Bills organization.
Well, you haven't shown me the list, so yeah, I'm kind of like over here, so I'm ready. It's going to be fresh and raw, and
Awesome.
We'll see how it hits me.
All right, away we go. We're going to go with a receiver who was drafted in 2002, stayed for the Bills till 2009, which surprised me. Josh Reed.
He was like a kid in a man's body. He was a great receiver at LSU. I remember he was billed as like a running back that, you get the ball to him, and he was kind of built real sturdy and could spin away and break tackles. And he did a bit of that. And, he had himself a nice career. But I remember we used to play basketball across the street at ECC for a while until players got hurt. Drew Haddad remembers that from our episode when Bud Carpenter was like, that's it, no more. But he played, and I used to bring my daughter Anna, who was only 7 or 8 at the time, and she would do her homework there, and he was just like super nice to her. He became her favorite player just by how nice he was to her.
Seemed like a nice
nice kid. Really, really friendly. Buffalo was a good place for him. Any place would have been. Buffalo, he liked to just talk to people and ask how they were. He was just, and so he remembered. I should try to get him on the show.
Where do you think he ranks all time? This one surprised me on the upside.
On the upside? Okay. I'm going to say 13.
10.
Wow. Okay.
I wouldn't have guessed.
Top 10.
Top 10. Yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah.
Speaking of top 10, the next guy who's on our show, an all-timer, Lee Evans.
Man, we've had good receivers.
We have.
Is that the best position we've had so far?
By far. Looking at this list, by far. You need to pick your game up with some of these other positions.
Tight ends. I promised on the London broadcast that I'm working on a lot of tight ends who we're going to talk with about what's it take for Dalton Kincaid to make an impact right away. What does he have to learn quickly? So I've gotten a few guys say that they'll be glad to come on, but it's going to be after your little trip there. So
sure. So we had Lee Evans on the program, talked all about his career, 2004 to 2010. He's third all time in receiving yards for the Bills.
Is he third or fourth?
Third.
Oh, this is yardage.
Yardage, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else to add about Lee?
I'm going to throw this one back at you because you led the interview that we had with him, and you didn't know him. But what were your impressions of him from that interview?
He was a cool guy. One of those guys in the drought era who I was surprised was the third all-time leading receiver in Bills history. I can see why the fans liked him. I can see why he was popular with his teammates. I can see why he was successful coming back from the ACL tear. molding his career around Chris Chambers, who was kind of his idol at Wisconsin.
Right.
I was just really impressed with him as a person and as a podcast guest. I mean, that's not exactly the same as being an NFL receiver, but he just seemed real earnest and real diligent and just a real down to earth guy who you'd want to have a beer with, or you'd want to catch 2 83-yard touchdowns in the first quarter of the game. Like, just good. Yeah. Just a real cool guy.
Yeah.
Where some of the players who I've come across, both, at the team and through this podcast, have been a little more difficult to deal with. He was exactly what I would expect, and that was a good thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good assessment. I one of the things I remember is I handled players' pay, and he was paid a lot of money as a first round pick, but he wanted to know where every dime of his paycheck went, and just he wanted to understand the business of the game and why is this. I think he understood, like, his career was only going to be X number of years. He must have had good advice, but is this deduction something where I'm kind of paying myself? This goes into my severance. This goes into this. Oh, this is for, the dues, or he just wanted to know. And
earnest. He just seemed like a real earnest guy.
Smart guy. Yeah.
Next on the list, Roscoe Parrish.
05
to 2011. I guess I didn't realize he was on the team for that long of a period of time. Miami guy.
Yep.
Kind of a gadget guy, right?
He was that's a good way to put it. He was almost like a toy.
Isaiah McKenzie.
Sure. Yeah. I would say where he
unneeded, unnecessary.
The fans thought so. The fans thought he was, we needed help in other areas, but he's just so electric at Miami, and a little bit kind of like maybe CJ Spiller down the road, where we had Fred and Marshawn, and we're like, why do we need CJ Spiller? Well, didn't see what he did in college, but Roscoe was, he made his mark as a punt returner, where he made some of the sickest moves that I have ever seen. It was so exciting as a punt returner to know that for sure he had a chance to break any of them.
How was he as a person? Did he have the U swagger, or was he?
He did, but he put it this way. From year 1 to year 2, I think he was very, very quiet in year 1. And I think it was because he felt like he needed to, he struggled in interviews.
Okay.
And, obviously there were people around him that loved him enough to tell him, I would like to see you do better with your interviews. And whatever he did between year 1 and year 2, you could tell he came back year 2 and 3, like, kind of anxious to be in front of a camera, like, hey, I want to talk. So market improvement in the way he delivered, how he spoke.
Was there ever any type of training from PR staff, from Scott Berchtold's guys? Like, did they ever work on that? Did they have camps? Did they do anything like that?
They gave what they instructed was more about content, what to say, what not to say. Don't allow yourself to get tripped up by this kind of question. Have this answer and this answer in your arsenal to say it in different ways. But I think Roscoe, his challenges were more than that at first, and I just give him a ton of credit, because we came back and we're like, there you go, like he was proud of it.
Is that his given name, Roscoe?
I think so.
It's a great name.
Yeah,
I didn't know if it was a nickname or something like Roscoe Pico Train, but that's a great name.
I get the reference. Yeah.
That's so. Where do you think he ranks all time? Bills receiving yards.
In the teens, let's say 16.
24.
Okay.
Punt return yards.
Yeah, right.
Kick return yards.
Yeah.
Gadget guy. Isaiah McKenzie before.
Sure.
Isaiah McKenzie. Probably a better career than Isaiah McKenzie. Now that he's left the team.
Roscoe Parrish, and I'm sorry, shameless plug for my book, Thunderstorm of Buffalo in 06. We went to
available
Detroit.
on Amazon.
Yeah. It was kind of the original how to get away from a snowstorm. These last year's Bills had to do it also. But, we lost that game in Detroit, but he had like a 50-yard bomb that was like the quintessential deep ball that he just got behind a guy, and you're like, I want to see more of that from
the
Roscoe.
Next name is probably a painful one. James Hardy.
Ooh.
See, there you go. I knew there would be some type of a sound effect coming from you. 08, 09.
Man. Yeah.
High hopes.
Again, what did he play at Indiana?
Yes.
And highlight film was like, that's the guy. That's the Plaxico Burress.
Because the wide receiver room was really short.
Yeah.
Like they had a lot of smaller guys at the time, and he was going to be the red zone guy
Yep.
and the whole thing.
Well, like kind of like Chris Chambers, or I mean, Randy Moss is one
Right.
of a kind, you know. But you know, maybe a poor man's Randy Moss. You would have taken that as a guy that, you know, one on one, you could just throw it up there, and he looked like a basketball forward.
Okay. 6'6",
something like that. He
Okay.
could jump and a good hand. He's just like, oh my gosh, yeah, of course. You know, one on one in the corner of the end zone.
What do you think went wrong?
Oh, well, he had injuries, and I think one was pretty serious, and it was like and he never really recovered from them. But I think it was more than that. I don't know.
Were there ever guys who, when you met them at the beginning, were you like, oh, I don't know if this guy, not physically, but just personality wise, interaction wise, like, were there guys where you were just like, man, I don't know if this guy gets it? And I'm not saying him in particular, but he's a second round flame out. I mean, just a flame out. Yeah. So, like, did you have guys who you thought, like, when you first met him, second time you met him, or the buzz around the building is like, oh man, we might have made a mistake here?
Not at first. I mean, he when he came in, he looked every bit like you would expect him to look. Like, there you go. You're the guy we've been watching on TV that wins every one-on-one that's thrown up there. He carried himself like a second round pick, but I think he had an injury when he came back. I remember kind of seeing, like, you can almost see the fear in his eyes. Like, this guy understands that he still has to earn, like, being a second round pick doesn't mean anything anymore. Like, he's got to earn his way onto this roster.
You get a grace period of like 1 year, right?
Yeah, it's not long.
And second round money back then, it's life changing, but it's not. Right. You know, what was the signing bonus for a second rounder back then? In 08, 09, a couple mil?
So, yeah, maybe depending on where in the second round.
It's not live off forever money.
$1 million. No.
So you better have
pre-tax. Yep.
Pre-tax 4 or 5, 6 year career. We always talk about the second contract.
Right. Yeah. He never made it to a second contract, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
66th all time on the list. Sorry, I wasn't going to even ask you that one because I think that'd be a tough one. Next guy on the list is polar opposite of James Hardy, from 08 to 13, fan favorite, a guy that we made contact with. We're going to get on the show, Stevie Johnson.
Yeah. 7th round pick. And I remember he came in, and I don't know, you figure a 7th round pick has a chance to crack the 53, but, you know, probably spend some time in the practice squad. And I remember hearing a buzz about this guy's just different. Like, in the way he carries himself, he's a quiet confidence, but man, the moves this guy makes, like okay, well, that's fine, but he's a 7th round pick, and you know, from my standpoint, I thought, okay, that's interesting, I'm curious, but still, do you expect him to be such a major contributor? But then I forget exactly when it was. Was that 09?
He started in 08.
08, okay. I think I want to say 10 was like his breakout season. Maybe 9 was his breakout season, and then by 11 he was like a star player.
Was his personality, because clearly he showed personality on the field, the shirts, you know, just flamboyant. Was he like that in the locker room? Was he a team leader? Was he their best player for those years? At least on the offensive side of the ball.
You see, I didn't view him, maybe in my traditionalist view, when I observed him, I didn't see how he was that kind of leader, but clearly I was wrong when we had Naaman Roosevelt on, and he said that he and the receivers that he played with, first of all, never saw anyone with moves like that, able to get that kind of separation, but also that, you know, Stevie helped them.
Yes. He was loved by the other receivers.
He was loved by them, yeah. And
he was obviously loved by Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Right. And after Naaman was on our show with Drew Haddad, I sent Stevie Johnson that episode. And I said, hey, I just want to show you, in case you didn't know already, what some of your former teammates said about you. And he was like, oh, cool, man. And he gave me like hearts. He goes, I really appreciate that. And then you contacted him.
He's doing a lot of amazing work in the community now. He's helping kids learn, like, life skills, which I really appreciate, like how to balance a checkbook. He's having a workshop on that. He's
that's cool.
Written some children's books. Freddie J makes the play about Fred Jackson. He has his own book, and then he did say he's doing one on Ryan Fitzpatrick as well.
Awesome.
Was there any blowback? Do you remember? There was the famous drop against Pittsburgh. You know, the why so serious stuff, the T-shirt stuff. Did it wear thin after a while? Was there any blowback in the building?
There was a little bit because of I think Chan was. I mean, a lot of times it cost us 15 yards on the kickoff.
Right.
You know, there were times eventually the refs were looking out for it. And he got away with it the first few times where he'd go in the end zone and lift up his shirt, and the refs weren't paying attention. So
there was the Happy New Year shirt, and then he got pulled. But by that time, and Chan Gailey is a traditional coach.
Yep, right.
Was a traditional coach, right? Yeah. After a while, did he get fined? Do you remember?
I think there were some fines, but I think in the game, I remember, instead of kicking off from the 35, we're kicking off from the 20, and we're still trying to win this game. But he was just so. I found it hilarious, but I didn't find it so hilarious when we got cost those yards. When the refs started to look for it, they caught him a few times, but they were always after touchdowns. And I have to admit, we were all like, what's it going to say? It's so funny though when I look at that Stevie Johnson from when he was drafted. It just he morphed into this guy. He was just so comfortable in his own skin. The clothes he wore around the building were, you'd have the jeans hanging down low, the hat backwards, a real urban kind of, and it's just this is who I am. Take it as I am. But he's just such a nice guy and just a heck of a player. We
went to see him at one of his book readings. Just a real down-to-earth guy. Great interacting with the kids. You can see why he writes children's books. And I really do admire the work that he's doing. He's on Twitter, Stevie Styles. I admire the work he's doing for the community here, which he doesn't live here, but he still comes back quite a bit. He did a free football camp and just some stuff that isn't necessarily the sexiest of projects, but teaching high school kids to balance a checkbook, or
I love that, man.
Or how to just stuff that you wouldn't think of, but he said that he struggled with, and he didn't get that kind of education growing up, and I really respect him for that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So where do you think he is all time, Bills? Wide receiver yards list.
9.
Close. 8.
Okay.
One of your better guesses. All right, next. Your guy, Terrell Owens. Owner to the key to the city of Buffalo, the 1 year of 2009.
That had to even solicit an eye roll from him, right?
He hadn't even played here yet, right?
No, it was like May, right?
And to be honest, he was a great receiver, but he wasn't I don't know, the key to the city?
It was
wow.
That was
Were you there?
That was cringeworthy. Yeah, I was there. I wasn't downtown.
You didn't go downtown?
No.
Okay.
It was on the news, and
okay.
I thought.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. We've addressed this before. His signing was marketing related. Is that fair to say?
It was a factor.
Okay.
It was a factor. No question about it. It was one of the few times that I remember the people that were going to make that decision kind of trying to read the room and the rest of the organization. And I remember they asked me, and what would you think if we signed T.O.? And I'm like, I mean, T.O. was doing this crazy stuff, doing the push-ups and the
sit-ups in the driveway.
Yeah.
And he had the whole Super Bowl. I mean, very talented, but clearly a distraction.
Oh, yeah. You could tell he was still a great player. I mean, he was like the Eagles should have won that Super Bowl. But
that it also was 5 years before. That was was Buffalo his only option then? Or the one that was going to pay him still superstar money?
I think that. And my answer was we just drafted Eric Wood and Andy Levitre, and you could see these guys right away were going to be a nucleus of a good offensive line, but they brought some kind of hey, this is there's kind of a youth movement going on here. We didn't feel like we were close to really winning anything, but there was something you could build on. And how much of a distraction is he going to be? And quite honestly, he was not a distraction at all. When he came, first time I met him, I saw him around the building a little bit, and he was talking with his receivers, but I remember we were flying out of Rochester for a preseason game, and we were told, because it was Rochester, a little different, hey, everyone has to show IDs. I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? I had to ask everyone for their IDs. So I remember there was a long line before we got on the plane.
Well, some of the players, like in 09, you might need their ID. Sorry.
Well,
sorry, gratuitous shot. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's all funny. But I remember like, hey, I just pictured him being, what are you kidding, man? That's BS. And like, I remember he was like the fourth person in line, and he already had it out.
That's cool.
And he already had it. And he was like ready to just, here we go. This is like, yes. And I'm like, yeah, thanks.
Did he have any, like when he came here, did he have any unique demands, contract? Like, was there anything special?
Not that I ever heard. No, he was on his just very best behavior. I mean, he had a good year. He had like 900
Where
yards.
Where do you live?
Or something.
Do you remember? Did he live in an apartment? Did he buy? He didn't buy a house, did he? It was a 1 year deal, and it kind of seemed like it was. Everyone knew it was for 1 year.
Yeah,
he probably wasn't going to stay.
Right. No.
So did he just rent an apartment somewhere?
I think so. Yeah, I can't remember. I think he rented an apartment.
Did it help the marketing cause at all? From where you sat?
Did we sell more tickets than we otherwise would have? Maybe some, but I don't know how to quantify it. But it was interesting, and he played well. I think he had 900 yards. I think 99 of them came in on one play.
Right. It just seemed so gratuitous at the time that it looked like a marketing ploy and a relevancy, even more so like a relevancy thing, where the Bills in 2009 were in oblivion, right? No primetime games, no buzz, no nothing.
And
nationally,
I just didn't feel like it made sense for a team that still had a ways to go. It felt gimmicky. It didn't work out. It didn't work out that way. He was fine when he was there.
But it didn't move the needle on the field.
No. He was. There's probably a lot of players that could have had those kind of numbers, but he wasn't a distraction like we thought he was. But he also didn't, like you said, move the needle.
Did he ever come back, like when you were there, like for any reason? Being a key holder to the city of Buffalo.
He could have just
just turn the key and turn the lights on.
A universal key, right? Yeah. I don't recall. I think maybe he did a couple times, but I don't. Maybe years later, but I don't remember him soon after he left.
In his career, just a stop.
Yeah,
this was a stop.
Yeah,
I don't feel any special connection between T.O. and the city of Buffalo.
He played a few more years with. Someone can look it up, but where did he go after that? He played a few more years.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember.
Did he go back to Philadelphia? I don't know.
So there was really no talk of him coming back a second year. Did everybody kind of know it was one and done? Because the team was terrible.
Yeah, no, it was. It felt like a one and done.
Okay,
like all the time.
The next guy on our list we had on our show. I went to high school, the same high school as him. Local guy named Roosevelt.
Oh,
you can check out that episode with Drew Haddad in our archives.
Yeah.
2010, 2011, homegrown kid, great story. 46th all time on the Bills receiver. Oh, where do you think T.O. ranked? One season.
30.
Bang on.
For real?
30th all time. Yeah.
Oh, I got
directly.
One.
You got one. You got T.O. Your guy. Your guy.
All right.
So we talked a bunch about Naaman and to Naaman. So we're gonna move forward to Donald Jones, 2010 through 2012.
Yeah.
One of the guys who I feel like there's a kind of a group together here of him and the next guy on our list, David Nelson, 2010, 2012. These are like the Fitz guys, right? The receivers who kind of came up with him. Were both of them undrafted?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were undrafted.
Tell me about one or both of them at the same time.
Being undrafted is relevant. I think Donald Jones I knew hardly anything about. Let me play at Connecticut or something.
I believe so.
I think but I never think the undrafted guys are going to make it. I know statistically, numerically, out of the 15 to 20, one or two always make it, but you never know who they're going to be. And
let's pause here for a second. We've kind of talked about this a couple times. I think people would be interested to know. Can you talk people through on draft night after the 7th round is over, what you did and what it takes to sign an undrafted free agent?
What
does it look like in the war room as soon as the 7th round is over?
Yeah. So I would go in at like the end of the 6th. I'm in my office following it on TV. And end of the 6th, beginning of the 7th, I'm going to go down there. Sometime between our picks in the 7th round, if we had multiple picks, someone would go up in the front of the room and say, okay, guys, as you know, closing out the draft, here's how the rookie free agent signings are going to go. And on the board would be if they were still on the board as like a 5th round pick, they were allowed to receive a signing bonus of up to like $20,000. I remember John Goldsberry with a fullback got that one time.
So the mechanics of it, though.
Yeah.
Do you have like a phone list?
So the calls would be made by either the scouts that scouted them or the position coach.
Now, are they calling these guys agents?
Yes.
Or okay, but isn't it? What happens if this agency represented 15 people at the same time who are undrafted? Do they have assistants? Like, who's negotiating these things? Is it literally you and a lower level person at the
backup would be the player themselves?
Okay,
you could talk to them. You weren't supposed to.
Did you ever negotiate with a player himself?
Well, what happened was you have this scale for the signing bonuses, and they were all brought to me, and I was responsible for getting a 1-page agreement to the agent as soon as the draft was over, but not a second before. So they were already negotiated. They were always just like a 3-year deal. I think they became a 4-year deal at the minimum.
Standard deal.
Yeah, the only variable was the signing bonus.
Okay.
And that could have been, believe it or not, there were some zeros. They were tough. I always hated that. I'm like, give the guy $500, you know,
zero
between 500 and 20,000.
That was my signing bonus.
Yeah.
Zero.
I think Jabari Greer got 12,000. Rashad Baker got like 12,500.
So there were targets.
Like that. Yeah, if they were projected to be a 5th round pick, but the team didn't need them because it wasn't a position need, they would be in that closer to the 20. If they were a 6th, it would be maybe a 12. If they were a 7th, it would be like 5.
Did this money count against the cap
Yes.
if they made the roster?
It counted against the cap right away.
Oh, it did. Okay.
There was a rookie pool, so it counted against the rookie pool, which it couldn't exceed that.
Was it chaos in the room?
Yeah. Chaos.
How many people were on the phone with people?
It was every position coach was talking to someone or a scout.
Did it look like a telethon in there?
It looked like Wall Street.
Okay.
The way it used to
20
be.
people on the phone?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And the thing is you keep hearing is like, we're really interested in you, and I gotta be honest with you, I think you have a chance to make this roster.
Sure.
And it was like, come on, you really?
Is there anything funny that stands out to you from one of the ones you personally either signed or didn't sign?
I remember Coach Jim McNally was an offensive line coach.
Mouse.
Yeah,
still lives in the area.
Yeah, and he didn't hold back. He's like, who else are you talking to? Oh, I know that stupid son of a SOB.
Okay, sure.
Are you kidding? You don't want to play for that. Bleep, bleep, bleep. He's
right.
Yeah.
So the position coaches were selling an opportunity.
Yep.
Selling. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What was the most money you ever remember somebody getting?
I think John Goldsberry got $20,000 as a signing bonus,
and then didn't make the team, right?
Maybe kicked around the practice squad or something. I don't remember him ever playing, but
wow.
I think, Jason Peters was an interesting one that no one could have ever known how well he was going to be.
Obviously, Donald Jones and David Nelson were 2 undrafted guys.
Yeah, they were both undrafted. And Nelson was interesting because he played at Florida, and because Tebow ran so much, no one knew really how good he could be.
Right.
And he ended up being a good receiver. Like, he was tall, lanky, really good hands. The NFL didn't seem too big for him playing in Florida.
So, like Stevie Johnson, 2 guys like this, when they come into the building, when they're undrafted, when they make the team, do you have what is that?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Because they know it's a cruel numbers game. They know their odds were long shots. And man, it is great when that final 53 is announced and you see a guy that was an undrafted rookie free agent. I think there's guys I remember like hugging just because. Wow.
Did they ever hug you when they came in to get their player pay for after week 1, after a game check?
They would, but then they would open it up and see the taxes and be like, "Oh man, what is this?" And I'm like, your agent should have told you about that.
Undrafted guys like this, like that 3-year standard contract was always for like the rookie minimum. Okay. And so what was that back like 2010, 2011? Was it like $500,000?
No, it would have been like 195 for the first year.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
285 for the second, and
I mean, good pay.
yeah, 360 for the
but
third.
with taxes, it's not get
right
rich money,
and if they got $10,000 as a signing bonus, that was it,
and no guarantees.
No,
You could be gone. You could be gone the next week.
Bare bones, and a lot of guys got cut like every week. Like Drew Haddad was talking to us about every time he hated
6'4", 1800.
hated seeing it because it usually meant he was going to get cut, but then brought back or put the practice squad and brought back again. Like it would happen multiple times a year for a lot of these guys.
Give me where Donald Jones and David Nelson rank all time in Bills wide receiver yardage.
Oh man, I'll go with Nelson as 20 and Donald Jones is 31.
29 Donald Jones, good. David Nelson 26.
No kidding. Okay.
So
he had good years with the Jets after.
Yes. There's a guy who you wanted to add to the list here, one of your wild cards, Brad Smith.
Yeah, Brad Smith was an exciting signing because we had been the victim of some kind of trick plays when he was at the Jets where he played this wildcat and he would either run. He was very good at it.
Like Cordell Stewart.
That's a good, but he could throw the ball really well. But then he lined up as a receiver and it wasn't gimmicky at all. Like he had some highlight reel catches, but there weren't, I think he was just there for a couple years. I just feel like maybe we didn't use him right as well as the Jets did anyway.
Well, it's another one of those. The receiver room was really interesting then. A lot of kind of misfit toys almost.
Yeah.
Like Stevie Johnson was the leader. He's a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of undrafted guys.
Yeah.
No superstar, no high pick.
Exactly. Yeah. Money wise, I mean, the team was getting a great value for, for how little they had.
It makes you realize just how good Fitz was. That
True.
he was dealing, he was throwing to not blue chippers.
No.
Not one blue chipper in that entire lot.
Right.
Another guy on the list, it's kind of the next era of receivers from 2013 through 2015. We're getting down towards the end here. Chris Hogan.
Yeah. What they call him 7-Eleven because he was always open.
Yeah, he was the Hard Knocks guy.
Yeah.
Hard Knocks fame in Miami, right? And then he came here. What do you remember about him?
He was real productive. I heard he was a lacrosse player, so my daughter.
Everybody heard that.
Yeah,
on every broadcast. It was like that Ryan Fitzpatrick went to Harvard. Yeah, we get it. And and that Ray Bentley wrote Darby the Dinosaur. Yeah, we get it. We get it.
Yeah, the little great in-depth bio there. But I remember my daughter was playing lacrosse, and I told him that, and he would ask, "Hey, how's she doing?" And he just was interested in that.
Did you find the undrafted guys more pleasant around the building, just in general? I know that's really oversimplified.
You know what? Yeah, I did. They felt like they were on top of the world, and especially when they would get. Just because you made the 53 didn't mean you were going to dress on game day. But when they did and they were productive, like seeing Naaman Roosevelt have that touchdown against the Giants, and then David Nelson had the game winner against the Raiders in week 2, and Donald Jones had a big, like a 50-yard touchdown catch against New England in that week 3. You're just so happy for him, and they.
You found yourselves rooting for those guys personally, just because they were a little more relatable, or just it's the Rudy story, it's the underdog story,
and we weren't supposed to do that, but there's a human element to it where you're like,
and you see these guys every week, and that the struggle is real, and that there's no guaranteed money.
Yeah, and a lot of times they would be on the roster at the expense of like a 6th or 7th round pick. That was tough too. When you saw on the opposite end, when you'd see a 6th round pick that would just get cut, like
tough.
Oh yeah, tough. That's hard
because you're not guaranteed a spot, but you should make the team.
You should, and there is a subjective type of premium built-in advantage for a player like that, because you never want to look bad as an organization because you spent a draft pick on someone that couldn't play.
Right,
that's tough.
Marquis Goodwin.
Yeah, he was always smiling, always just
track star,
man. He was, I mean, talk about BB. I think when I think about team, speed that the Bills had, he's like number 2.
Did he strike you, being a track guy sprint? Did he look any different than like? than some of the other guys would?
Not really. No. He was small, but man, when he was on the field, it was just like this good. No matter where you were on the field, it's like this guy might get behind somebody and
do you remember
score.
why he left? I feel like they left some good. I mean, he went on to some success with San Francisco.
Yeah.
I feel like they left a little bit of meat on the bone there with him.
I agree. Yeah, what year did
16.
It was 16 was his last year.
I believe so. Yeah. So maybe it was after.
Yeah, because I think we played the Jets on
and he had the big
night.
bomb.
Yep, and it looked like, but Fitz wasn't gonna let it happen.
Right.
Fitz, he was just like, he looked as good as ever, unfortunately against us. But Marquis Goodwin was the quintessential deep threat. It's funny, I don't remember a lot of catches he had or balls thrown to him that weren't like there was very little of the short to intermediate stuff that I remember.
His route tree was probably a little bit limited, right? He probably just ran a lot of nines, a lot of go routes.
That always drove me crazy when you see a guy run 60 yards and then comes right back to the line of scrimmage. I know these are the premier athletes, in the world or whatever, and their conditioning is crazy, but the team had a GPS in practice where they would see, okay, after the 20th time in 52 minutes that a player would run this route, on the 21st time, there was a 5% decrease in how fast.
Naturally.
It makes sense, but I always thought, I know I would be exhausted.
Sure.
I would just give me one and I'll come back.
Yeah, wide receiver is a position where you don't play every play. And I think people take for granted, who are your three receivers? Well, if you've got some depth and you can sub guys out, even in a drive, a 12-play drive, if you're throwing the ball 11 times, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And people kind of take that for granted because they're on the outside. And you just expect them, just like you just said, line up again and run another go. Like after a while, you want them at their peak, and to have like a fourth guy or a fifth guy who can spell and play is pretty important.
Yeah, you like to think that fourth or fifth guy is at least 90% as effective as a tired.
Right. Another guy in that vein, TJ Graham.
Another guy we had high hopes for. He played pretty well early on, but his production, didn't live up to.
It's amazing when you go back to this list. Like after Lee Evans,
a third round pick, Graham.
Yeah. After Lee Evans, almost no investment in the wide receiver room in terms of draft capital, all the way up until our probably last big name and controversial name and coming up. But like all these guys, undrafted guys, low round picks, etc. And like you talked about at the beginning of episode 1, just for as many toys as they kept drafting at running back. Like, how about a big name receiver?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's looking back. I mean, it certainly was not a winning formula, but especially when you see the league is so receiver driven now. But
it's kind of amazing just to do this exercise and realize in that time period, and frankly, it's probably part of the reason the drought lasted as long as it did, is they just did not put the assets. They didn't hit on any of them, but they didn't put the assets into the passing game.
Yeah, Sammy Watkins was a big.
Well,
splash.
we're going there.
Okay, you mentioned
we're going there. Yeah. So a guy who's had a really great career. Robert Woods.
Robert Woods, one of my favorite out of this entire group. I mean, he
second round pick, USC.
Yep, USC, and he carried himself like a pro right away. And I remember the scouting report was that he was maybe in the entire draft the most NFL ready, and he was a cool guy, he got open, he caught everything.
Did you find the guys from Southern California, the guys who went to USC, UCLA, West Coast guys? We talked about Rob Johnson versus Doug Flutie back then. Like, they were just kind of different, right? I felt like you were kind of built different if you went to USC.
Yeah.
Not that you weren't a better player, worse player than a guy who went to Tennessee or the U or whatever, but I just feel like a certain type of personality is going to go to USC.
Yeah, he's laid back. It's a bad look if you can't back it up. But Woods backed it up. He was just so dependable. And when I saw the success he had when he went to
the Rams,
the Rams after that, and you're just like, man, how could you not see that he was just so dependable and productive?
dependable, right? That's the word. And it's nice when they're likable as well and cool.
Yeah, no, he was real. If you had to tell him something or ask him a question, he's just real respectful, but wouldn't react in such a way. Oh, are you going to try to catch me off guard here? You just, okay, dude, what do you got?
Where do you think he ranks all time, Bills?
Not as high as he should have. They should have kept him, but 12,
17.
Okay,
That's
was that his
right.
number? I think that might have been his number.
But exactly right. Like should have kept him.
Yeah,
that was fun. We have 2 more to go.
Okay.
Okay. Sammy Watkins, take me into the draft room
the
night that they make the big trade for him.
Mm-hmm.
How shocked were you? How quickly did you realize what a terrible deal that was to trade up for a wide receiver, which I think is just crazy? And then when did you realize that was another one of those questionable marketing splash / football decisions from Doug Whaley and Russ Brandon?
I would say that there was surprisingly less of that marketing. I believe truly that they thought he was so much better than everyone else on the board. I think there was
There's a couple. That was good. That was a good receiver draft.
Yeah,
it was a very good. And now he at Clemson, in fairness, was fantastic.
Yes,
he was a specimen. He was a freak.
Yep.
Like he was fantastic at Clemson.
Yep.
But the idea of giving up another first round pick and you're not the Patriots who are in the playoffs every year. Your first round picks were gold.
They were foundational.
Yes, because they were top 10 for the last 15 years or top 15. So were you in the room? Were you in the?
I was in the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any eye rolling or man. I mean, people are gonna be excited. Blah 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 blah. But
whether it was clear that this was the team's. He was the guy that for all of the guys that had all the scouting that had been done on him. That for all the talk about how good the other receivers were in the draft that year. That Watkins was a generational talent.
How long after he got here were you kind of like, not so sure? I mean, there was injuries, but then there was also some other stuff, and he just never seemed to be truly engaged in football.
Well, he kept having these foot injuries, which not a good thing, how many bones are in the foot?
Sure, you're a wide receiver. You don't want to foot injury.
When your whole livelihood is based on cutting,
right?
But when he was healthy, he was very good. Like he was, oh my gosh!
How did you find him? How did you find him? Like around the building.
He was distant. He was a guy that you didn't feel like you felt like you had to earn his trust. That no matter who if someone in the building. He had a need and he said, oh, you should go see Don Purdy for that. He would come, but then wouldn't engage in small talk. He almost look at you like I'm told I should trust you, but I'm going to get there on my own pace.
So not a natural leader.
Not vocally.
Okay.
I think he was so talented that I don't want to speak. I never heard this around the building that there was any issues with his work ethic. I think it was good, but he just thought his talent was going to carry the day all the time. But those foot injuries were the kiss of death for him, and they happened too frequently. And I know he played through some pain when he was good. I mean, a Minnesota game was that to Kansas City game. I think Cincinnati. He had some monster games, and then crazy enough that we stopped throwing him the ball. I think it was when Kyle Orton came. He was understood we got to keep feeding him the ball. But even after he left the Bills, which ends up being a failure when you trade up for a first round pick and he's not a 10-year star player.
It cost you the 4th pick in the draft and another first round pick.
That's a fail. Obviously.
Ironically, he's probably the guy who you can look at in this era who, if he would have worked out, things could have been very different.
You're right, Josh.
He's the guy because they didn't draft a quarterback after EJ Manuel.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't another. He's the guy who. Man, that really led to the downfall of Doug Whaley.
Yeah.
The Rex Ryan, Russ Brandon, Don Purdy era. But right, like if he's a difference maker, if he's a franchise receiver, generational guy, this whole thing might be very different.
Yeah, agreed. And he went on to win a Super Bowl with the Chiefs or the Rams. Which team was he on?
I think the Chiefs.
And I think he had like over 100 yards in the Super Bowl.
He played well.
He was still like, but there he was, but it just didn't. He couldn't stay on the field long enough here, and it. You're right. It couldn't go unnoticed.
You can't. That was your big swing.
Yep,
that was your big swing, especially for a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, to me, it felt crazy. I just would never give up that much draft capital when the second and third, fourth receivers in the draft, just the incremental difference between them just doesn't make sense to me as just a resource allocation.
Yeah, and I remember, again, I was in the building, I wasn't in the room, but then the room opened. I was in the room for previous drafts with previous administrations, but every administration had different things about who they wanted in the room, and I always knew what my post-draft duties were, but the celebration that happened with Watkins seemed like it would have been merited had Watkins been there at your regular pick.
Right.
But the celebration for
trading
up and getting him was like, wait a minute, this is a huge risk reward. I mean, yeah, we got him, but at what expense? And you won't know. But
right. Well, the two principals of that trade are now working in the XFL, so I guess that shows you how well that went. No,
undebatable.
You're right. Like there was the picture of them high fiving in the draft room and all that, and it's like like if your guy falls to you at 7 or whatever it was, but trading up to get him at 4, like I guess congratulations. Like you clearly overpaid.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. Where do you think he is all time?
15.
Bang on.
For real?
Yes.
I got two.
You got two of them right. Wow. You got T.O. and Sammy Watkins. That's funny. Maybe they're seared into your memory.
And my increments of 15 are working for me.
That's right. Yeah. So we got one more here on the list, and then any final thoughts you have. Percy Harvin.
Oh man, it was great to get him. His first game. Someone posted this on either YouTube or Twitter because they heard us talking about Harvin, and it was against someone. I got to give him credit. It was against the Colts. Opening day, like a 50-yard bomb, Tyrod Taylor threw him, and he laid out and caught it. We're like, we're getting the Percy Harvin that Seattle had that was just this ultimate weapon. And then, his numbers, I think, kind of tailed off. There might have been an injury. His production with the Bills didn't live up to what he had done with Seattle. Good guy, yeah, I don't have a whole lot that I remember much about him. It was kind of it was either 2 years.
Yeah, another one of those kind of past their prime or everything's got to go right for this to work.
Yeah,
kind of guys, like just never.
He had there were questions about maybe attitude questions, when he was in Seattle, a little prima donna-ish, but we were still happy to get him, hoping that kind of like with Diggs now that the issues that appeared to be having in Minnesota came here and they just weren't there. This latest mini camp not being there, notwithstanding, which we'll see how they'll play out. But other than that, you can't argue. Diggs has been a great guy on the field and in the locker room and just a fiery competitor. But with Harvin, I don't know. It wasn't. I don't remember any flare-ups or fights or anything like that. It just we had other good receivers on the team. We had a strong receiving core. And the
Rex Ryan 2 years are a whole bunch of what ifs. It could have been, should have been.
You say 2 years. I look at the 15 and 16 quite differently. I think if we had, 16 was regression, and there were your reasons for that were unnecessary. 15, things were pretty hopeful. But yeah, they weren't boring either, no matter what.
Right. So give me your take Andre Reed out. He's the GOAT of Bills receivers in this entire exercise, all the way up to Stephon Diggs. Obviously, once you left, the 2017, 2018 Bills had kind of a nondescript group with Kelvin Benjamin and a whole bunch of guys, and then they brought in Cole Beasley and John Brown to kind of help Josh Allen, and then you get to the Diggs and the receiver room of today. Take Andre Reed out. Give me your Mount Rushmore of Bills receivers after the GOAT.
Molds is an easy one. I'm go with Lee Evans. So Molds, Evans. Boy.
Stevie Johnson.
Yeah, Stevie Johnson. Thank you.
Okay, and then I picked 4 after
So
Reed.
so Reed plus 3.
Reed plus 4 more.
Oh.
Take Reed out.
All right.
Because here's the I think those are the 3 obvious ones.
Yeah.
Molds, Stevie Johnson, Lee Evans. Who's the 4th? Peerless, or you got Bill Brooks. You've got it gets a little dark. It gets a little bleak.
It's gonna be
Sammy Watkins.
It's gonna be an asterisk, and I'm doing this in a
James
way.
Lofton.
It's I'm gonna say Steve Tasker.
Okay.
As a football player.
Sure. That's fair enough. No,
when you look up the roster, WR 89 WR, he was a receiver, and I'm going to talk about Steve Tasker as a football player.
I like that. That's a good out.
Yeah.
Nice work. Nice work. Hopefully everybody really enjoyed this. I hope you like and subscribe to the video. These series are fun. This one a little more challenging because not as easy to delineate as quarterbacks and one of the weaker positions over the last 30 years after you get through the Super Bowl era. We're gonna do one kicking around doing either D linemen or running backs, which had a lot of personality and a lot of bigger names. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this, and we'll see everybody soon.
Sounds good. All right.